Hello, good morning, good afternoon, maybe even good night, because the great thing about the Daily Flock Show is you can consume it whenever you want. I'm Jason Lockenflora. That's Flocky. If you have a better name, email me. Flock me, flock you, flockoff@gmail.com. Welcome to the second edition of the show. As you can tell, I'm shot out of a cannon. I love doing this. I'm so pumped to be with my friends at Big Play and have this forum to talk Baltimore sports with you guys. Pretty much Ravens, but certainly some O's. What are we going to do today? So much to get to. Does that Giants Bengals trade affect the Ravens' ability to get certain players at 14? Maybe in particular, a guard from Penn State who, yeah, he is worthy of going that high or even higher. We'll explain. Talk to a lot of evaluators about him. How about the Ravens and all that cap space they created by kicking the can with Lamar again? Because they still haven't done a real new deal with him. How could they spend that? When could they spend that? We've got some ideas, and there's some free agents out there, whether now or right after the draft, make a lot of sense for them. And then how they're going to replace Tyler Linderbaum. I've got an idea that there's a day three kid or two that they're looking at the center position, and there's some other sleepers who I know are on their radar who could fill some sneaky needs. You want to see more than just this show, you can check us out at Ravens on SI all the time. We are putting up great Ravens content 3, 4, 5 times a day. And we've got this show as well. And as I said, it is going to be a heavy Ravens bent. But we got to talk a little O's here real quick. Last night, one of the more bizarre ball games you're ever going to see. And I'm super fired up about my man, Big Sam Basayo, and the gains he's making behind the plate, his blocking, some of his fundamentals. Certainly, we know the pop times there, but the accuracy of the throws is awesome. What he and Dylan Beavers did, clutch at bats, cutting down their swing, and just pushing the ball the other way when you just need one run to keep the game going. Yeah, that was awesome. Leody Taveras needs to play center field every day. I would have said that even if he didn't hit that grand slam in the 12th last night. But this Gunnar Henderson situation here, and I love Gunnar. Remember watching his first game in Delmarva with my kids on the TV, on MILB TV, and watching him go opposite field to the opposite power alley. No one's more excited about him, has been more excited about him. No one's going to be sadder if/when he leaves. But what happened last night can't happen in Major League Baseball. And this is a front office, because it all comes down to Mike Elias, that enables and coddles these players who aren't that young anymore to a fault. And when you get picked off first to start the game, and you get picked off first by a different pitcher in the ninth inning in another situation that's even more clutch than the first, and you've been a little too demonstrative and you've been a little too out there with your emotions, you need to sit the next day. That's what happens in the majors. That's how you have accountability. That's how you change a culture that's been all about coddling and enabling and playing with Legos, and you got more back rubs than me. That's got to end. And Craig Alvarez has to end it. And I'm sure his boss won't love it, but big litmus test for them tonight. Not saying he can't come off the bench and help you at some point in time, but they better start doing things differently there, because their fundamental rot and their low IQ baseball threatens to undermine yet another season. It's already happening every night. So certainly something we'll be writing about at Orioles on SI, and you can get my game reports there. All right, the draft is almost here. So let's get into it. Ryan, my super producer, my friend, let's hear from Eric DaCosta, if we can, about the offensive lineman who he might be looking at around pick 14, and in particular, a program he loves, Penn State, guard Vega Ioane.
I think Vega, obviously seen him play a bunch, physical, tough, probably a guard is what he probably is, but sort of prototypes straight from central casting of what you want your guards to look like. So I think they're both excellent prospects. I think both guys are first-round talents. Both guys probably come in right away and help your team quite a bit.
The other guy he was mentioning there, the way the question was framed, is Spencer Fano, a tackle from Utah, who probably could be a jack of all trades and help out all over the place. Best suited as tackle, maybe, because of the arms, right over left. The wingspan differential is good. It's okay. It's serviceable. +3. It's not elite. But let's talk about Vega, because I'm somebody a little bit old school. A lot of the guys I'm closest to are old school evaluators, dudes who've been in the league 30, 40 years. They understand the analytics. They utilize the analytics, but they're old school scouts. Um, and you get caught up in value and what's a stretch and what's a reach and how much can just a guard do. And trust me, I was in the just a guard camp 2 months ago, but working on this draft every single day, reporting on this draft every single day for some of the many people I work for, I've come around to think it actually will be uh, something potentially of a steal if this kid Ione is there for them at 14. Uh, Everything about him screams Baltimore Raven. In fact, it screams Baltimore Raven so much that I wouldn't be surprised at all if John Harbaugh grabs this kid at 10th overall, the pick he got for Dexter Lawrence in that monster trade they just made with the Bengals. Eric DeCosta said the important part there. He's a guard. Moving him around, getting too cute for him. Yeah, I know he can snap a little bit. Doing all that diminishes the fact that he is a blue chip, ready-made potential Pro Bowl guard from the moment he walks in your building. And some of the guys I talk to regularly who've been helping me break these players down, one of them called me. I'm walking my dogs over the weekend, and he's like, "Dude, I think I sold the Penn State kid even a little shorter, a little. I sold him a little short." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, the more I watch him, the more I see Quentin Nelson. Now, Quentin Nelson, when he came out a few years ago and the Colts took him in the top 5, some people were already saying, put the mustard jacket on him now. He's going to Canton, and he's had a hell of a career. He's had to deal with some injuries, and the Colts haven't built a great team, yada yada yada. But their general manager Chris Ballard took a lot of heat for taking him as high as he did, and in hindsight, he was right. Now I ran that by a general manager, and he's like, I think he's a tier below that. I don't think I can evaluate him as high as I did Nelson, but like he shouldn't be on a whole nother plane than him. Like he shouldn't be like he would be one tier under him. And if you're talking about picking in the middle of the first round, especially in this draft, short of blue chip players, yeah, absolutely. Is it still a little rich for me if I was at 14? The GM said, yeah, but not rich enough for me not to take him. Why do I like him so much? He is an immediate tone setter. This is a team that for years playing like a Raven meant being a bully. He's a bully, and I think he's going to come into the NFL as a bully. The size, the strength, the he doesn't just block people to the ground. Like evaluators, like he wants to block you 3 feet under the ground. Like that's what he is. And you just put him at left guard and you count how many Pro Bowls he goes to, and you let him help, Ronnie Stanley out, or in Harbaugh's case, Andrew Thomas, right? Because we're talking teams with left tackles who you don't know about their availability. And all of a sudden you feel great about the blind side for your quarterback. These values are always changing. There's people who think Tyler Linderbaum went too high, and you probably could have got him in the second round. Creed Humphrey went pick 60? Do you need to take a center that high? There were some people in the scouting community who thought, Kyle Hamilton, if he ends up being more of a box safety, more of a will linebacker, is that too high to take him? Well, it clearly wasn't. And I think for the Ravens in this moment, if Fano is gone, I think he'll be gone. If the kid from the tackle from Miami's gone, he'll be gone. Maybe even one other tackle's gone, whether that's Freeling or Proctor. I don't think anybody around here should be like, oh, it's not that sexy. Oh, what about all these receivers? Like, too many smart people have told me, no, you take this kid and you use him the way DeCosta was talking about using him as an immediate impact guard for you. And you let him help whoever's at center because he's going to be able to help him. And if Ronnie Stanley went down, one evaluator told me, if I looked at the roster right now and you put Ioane on it, and you told me Ronnie Stanley went down, I think this kid could play left tackle, at least at a serviceable level by the end of the season if he got enough reps. So that's the kind of prospect we're talking about. And let's not like beat around the bush. The offensive line is a major issue. They've got a quarterback who has all the leverage in the world, who can redo his deal or not do his redeal because he's going to be fine either way. But they need the future cap space and they need the certainty at the position. And guess what? They need to re-recruit Lamar Jackson. And you better put a better starting 5 in front of him than what he dealt with last year. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of people out there who, if this comes to pass, would say, ooh, well, how much can a guard do? Well, I think for this team in this moment, a guard could do a lot. My question again is that the guy Harbaugh has his eyes on? Because I don't think it's Caleb Downs, and I think they're going Sonny Styles at 5. I have all along. And I don't know that it's a receiver. That feels like a lot of premeditated smoke. All the production they're making about receivers. I don't know. I think Harbs is going trenches. So again, anything new I find out about that, you'll be able to go to Ravens on SI and see it first. Okay, Lamar and the contract. And again, that's a topic we're going to have much more on the other side of the draft. But they restructured. Excuse me. They did the maximum restructure, so that creates the maximum cap space. And guess what? They still have holes. Even if they used all 11 of these draft picks, they're going to have holes. So as it stands, I see a scenario where they absolutely could dip into the free agent market. But what did Eric DeCosta have to say back at the combine before they ended up doing that restructure about this Lamar Jackson contractual situation?
Lamar and I have an agreement. We handle business kind of in-house internally, as you all know. That worked well for us the last time, and we will continue to have that policy moving forward. Have spoken to Lamar about a lot of different things over the last month. He's been very engaged. As I said, he was a big value to us in the coaching search. But we'll continue those conversations moving forward.
Yeah, so all of that in February, and Steve Bisciotti coming out and saying, we need to really get this done before free agency. Well, here we are. OTAs are around the corner. The draft is here, and Lamar is down to basically the vet minimum, and they create their $40 million in cap space, and they are really under the gun. But they did create all that space. And yeah, some of it will go to Zay Flowers, but it's not like there's a whole bunch of other guys on this roster with their hands up saying, pay me next, because their best recent draft picks all left the building in free agency who weren't already extended. So what are they going to do with that money? Well, I have some ideas. And a lot of people were talking about David Njoku because he was in the building for a look-see, or he was or he wasn't, but he's been tied to them. DJ Reader, they looked at. He's going to go to Harbaugh and the Giants as a run stuffer. I believe there's some smart ways that they can spend their money here. Let's start with Darren Waller, former Raven. Maybe you knew, maybe you didn't know. On their practice squad, they let him warm up with the team before a game against the Raiders. John Gruden and some of his scouts watched him warm up, said, our roster stinks. Let's pluck them off their practice squad. The rest is history. Look, Darren Waller looked pretty good when he came back from injury again last year, and I get it. That's the concern. But for a guy who's like retired twice, I talked to evaluators, including 2 general managers, who were looking at tight ends and guys who also could have traded for Mark Andrews a year ago, because anybody could have, and asked them what they thought of Waller versus Andrews, and they all preferred Waller. And I'm like, you prefer Waller because you won't have to pay $13 million for him next year, like the Ravens are Andrews? And they said, take that out, but we prefer him as a player. If you're talking about someone who can move downfield as a big target, high point the ball, get off the ground a little bit, make some things happen athletically, he's superior. I think that would be an interesting and cool reunion. It's a guy who's been through a lot of stuff, really kind of saved his life, right? Battled addiction, had tremendous demons haunting him in his life when he was here, which was part of the reason why he didn't blossom here. They always want to have their Odell or their Sammy Watkins or, their Dez Bryant or whatever. It doesn't have to be a receiver. If they want to go that route, and again, I got a piece up at Ravens on SI, it shouldn't be a receiver. But let's be real about what Waller could do. They wanted to get value from Mark Andrews a year ago when he was a year younger. And people were telling me they won't get more than a fifth for him, and they couldn't get more than a fifth for him. So he's back, and likely's gone. And maybe they address this in the draft. They better address this in the draft. But this is someone who I think could add value, could come at a cheaper price, certainly than what they're paying Mark Andrews. And just as a move tight end at this stage of their career, people I trust who do this for a living say that they would go with Waller. I also think place kicker is something that's not probably talked about as much, because let's face it, this has been a crazy offseason already with Harbaugh fired and the new staff and the Crosby trade that wasn't, and everything going on with Lamar's contract, and now this pivotal draft. And I know they brought in another kid to maybe be nominal competition for Luke, but I think they should be looking at a veteran, and I think they should be looking at Matt Prater, who has made clutch kicks, who you look at his percentage over 50, it rates. He's kicked in rough climates. He's kicked for teams like the Buffalo Bills in less than perfect conditions with seasons on the line and a ton of pressure. And you created this 40 million and they're not going to spend it all, but I think there needs to be real competition in there. I think this needs to be a case of a true meritocracy. Let the best man win. And I understand what you've invested, time, energy, etc., in Loop, but I don't think this offense is going to be what it was under Todd Monken 2 years ago. And you don't know what you have in a 30-year-old coordinator who's never done it before in Declan Doyle. And the defense was an abject failure the last couple of years. And yes, I think Minter can fix a lot of it, but I'm not sure that all that happens and congeals from day one. The field position is going to matter. The specialists have been an issue around here for a while now. And Stout develops and then he leaves the building. I don't know that you can go kid punter, and they might go draft another punter, and kid kicker, and we'll just try Westry or whoever returning and think that's going to be good enough. Matt Prater's someone who just makes a ton of sense for me. And if Luke beats him out, that's a great thing. Whatever. It's not like you're going to have to give Prater a ton of upfront guaranteed money that's going to be a sunk cost if he can't do it anymore. But that's a position group that I think they need to get real about, and they probably need to get real about sooner rather than later, because when you get a new coach, which we haven't had around here in a long time, everything starts a little earlier in the offseason, and I would want to get him in my building. We talked O-line, and I think 14 is an offensive lineman, whether it's a pure tackle or a pure guard or whatever. But maybe it is Ioane, in which case, boy, Cam Robinson, Jonah Williams never going to be what the Bengals drafted him to be. But one of those two guys as a highly priced swing tackle, when your right tackle probably can't play left tackle, and your left tackle's on borrowed time. We'll see what they do with these picks. They're not going to use all 11, whether it's 8 or 9 or what have you, and where things stand. But one of those two guys would be on speed dial for me. I'd already be talking to their agents. I'd want to have a real good feel on what their market is in some other places. Because if they don't invest in tackle in the first 2 days of the draft, and I'm talking pure tackle, someone with legitimate starting left tackle upside and potential sooner rather than later, then that absolutely better be addressed off the street, because going in just thinking you're going to get another year out of Ronnie Stanley, I think would be absolutely a fool's errand. And look, Jadeveon Clowney, when he left here, a lot of people said that's probably the best you'll ever get from him. And the Ravens have had a predilection for keeping guys around a year too long and not getting that value anymore and stunting the growth of some younger players and messing up their locker rooms a little bit. So I get all that. And I've been one of the people who's been critical of that in the past. I thought they did it last year with Van Noy and Andrews and some others. I'd rather have a guy out of my building a year too early than a year too late. That's what Bill Belichick always said, and I believe him on that. But Jadeveon Clowney, if you do still address edge in this draft, and so you've got Green, you've got Hendrickson, you bring in another interesting piece in your first 3 picks, on a pitch count, in the kind of role that Calais Campbell, different position, but kind of similar because Clowney will rush inside for them too, where he was at the end of his Ravens career. You're not asking him to do too much. He doesn't have to set the edge on early downs all the time, but he can be a part of some of that. You look at his pass rush win rates last year. You look at his pressure rates and what he did in Dallas, right? A team that was in scramble mode after the Micah Parsons trade. It's pretty impressive. And I do think he's matured, and I think he's come to understand some things. And you can now look at what he did in Carolina when he left here, and it wasn't bad. And what he did in Dallas last year, and there's some things he did that were really good, and he fit okay in this locker room last time. So I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. I do think he and Hendrickson could coexist and actually help each other because, again, he's going to do some things with those massive levers on early downs that Hendrickson can't. I think there could be a really interesting timeshare there. He's going to make some money, but he's not going to break the bank. So Waller, Clowney, those are some reunions I could get behind. Some of the other ones that are being thrown out there, like Odell taking that physical in New York the other day, no thanks. Okay. So yeah, free agency wasn't super kind to the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of us expected that. A lot of guys were going to leave the building because that's what happens if you don't have them extended well before the start of free agency. The most significant loss, obviously, was Tyler Linderbaum, somebody who functioned as the central nervous system in some ways of their offense as the center. Somebody who played well enough to get paid the way the Raiders paid him. What happened there? Why did he leave the bird's nest?
Yeah, so first of all, Tyler's a guy that I have tremendous respect for. Obviously he's proven to be, in my opinion, the best center in the league. We've been having conversations. We've had conversations since the end of the season. And at this point in time, we've made him a market-setting deal, proposal, offer, and hopefully we can get something done with him between now and the start of the new league year. Well, I think we started that last year. We took a couple guys we were excited about last year on the offensive line, in Cordell and Emery. We're excited to see what those guys bring to the table this year. No guarantees, but we're excited to see where those guys are, and we're not done yet. I think it was tough to see Nnamdi go down last year. Left us probably a little vulnerable. We did see some guys step up. It was great to see Travis emerge like he did, especially the second half of the season. We were fortunate to be able to get a deal done with him. But I think, we've always been a team that has valued the importance of, quote-unquote, the trenches and being up front, which is one of the reasons why we want to bring Tyler back, if we can. Certainly a focus for us is you look at your roster and you see the ebbs and flows. You lose players. We've lost some offensive linemen the last couple of years. We've lost some defensive linemen. We've got 11 draft picks, I think, and we should have a good opportunity to add players.
This is an interesting dynamic for me because when they took Linderbaum, and again, it was high for him. It wasn't just a center, but it was a diminutive center. He doesn't fit every scheme. They did a great job with him. He was a winning football player for them. But I found that dynamic interesting because this was a team that hadn't ever paid a center before, had let their centers walk, whether it was somebody they developed like Brown or somebody that they brought in who helped them win a Super Bowl like Burke, but then said, we can find a replacement much cheaper. They had people like Patrick McCary, who was an undrafted, we're just going to call him an offensive lineman, Swiss Army knife. We'll figure out what he could do. He ends up starting at center for them in stretch runs and playoff games. So that had been a get-by position. Under Linderbaum, it became very different with the draft capital they invested in him, and a lot of people in real time saying that might be a reach. That might be an overdraft. We think they could have got him 15, 20 slots down. We'll never know. And now they find a point where they're talking about extending themselves for a center the way they don't extend themselves for even some of the premium positions, and they still couldn't keep the player. So what does that mean now? Well, I don't think they're drafting a center again in the first round, even if they drop down, although the kid Rutledge from Georgia Tech is kind of interesting. But where are some sleepers they could look at? Where are some spots in this draft where they could look at some sleepers? I have some ideas, and let's start at center. Again, talking to cross-checkers, longtime college scouts, guys who I have decades of relationships with. Hey, man, help me sort through this. When you're evaluating this position group, tell me guys you think look like Ravens to you. And two different people said, I think I found the Linderbaum replacement. And I'm like, oh, the kid from Georgia Tech. No. I'll let you start doing work on Parker Brailsford. So I had to look up who Parker Brailsford was. And he's a center at Alabama who just got there a year ago. And I'm like, all right, so what do you see here? And they're like, well, go pull up his combine numbers and then compare him to Linderbaum. Go look at height, weight, look at some of the athletic numbers, look at the hands, wingspan, everything. And then go, do some work on him and make some calls. So, he just got on campus and won everybody over and learned the offense immediately and immediately became a captain in Alabama. We know they love team captains and we know they love Alabama, and you're going to get value on them because not everybody's going to be as enamored with some of those numbers, those size numbers that you didn't have a problem with Linderbaum, that they probably will. And this is a kid you can get in day 3. That checks a lot of boxes. Well, what about his athleticism? Like, obviously, he's going to have some warts if we're talking about a day 3 undersized center, but like, can he move his feet? Can he get to the second level? Can he do some of the athletic things they ask their centers to do? Absolutely. And are they going to need him to start from day one? No. I mean, I hope not. But they're all, you heard DaCosta mention some offensive linemen in that clip. Some of those guys weren't even going to be healthy or certainly weren't going to affect the 2025 Ravens, but they've invested draft capital in guys in a redshirt year, guys coming off injury, guys where they see value at that position because they know it takes some time to develop. And they know because 5 of them are on the field, it's half your offense all the time that you need to constantly be replenishing that stock. So then I started saying, all right, well, that's evaluators, right? That's college guys, and they get caught in it, and they overhype everybody because they don't have to look at the game through the portal of free agency and everything else. So let me ask a couple general managers about Brailsford. And he's not everybody's cup of tea, but they're like, for those guys, absolutely. Like, will they look at him and say, we get him the 5th, 6th round, whatever, and he's starting center for us at some point in time, maybe by 2027? And maybe sooner, because this kid works his tail off, maximizes every bit of athleticism he has. And while he's not the leverage wrestling demon that Linderbaum was, there's clay you can mold there. So he's someone I think should be on Ravens fans' radar. I've got much more on him and everybody else. Again, go to Ravens on SI. The amount of content we have there is frankly kind of staggering. And we're not doing it just to do it. It's informed content. Couple other kids I wanted to make sure are on your radar. One, you certainly know, Roman Hemby, local kid, was at Maryland for a spell, went to Indiana. One of those 2 Indiana running backs are going to end up making a lot of sense for the Ravens some point in day 3, I believe, or maybe Hemby's a priority free agent. Who knows? But again, 32-year-old running backs, Derrick Henry's going in his age 32 season, have fallen off a cliff. Basically all of them since 1970 have regressed. Most have completely fallen off a cliff. Some have still been able to give you decent production, but nowhere near the over 5 yards per carry, over 300 carries a year, over 1,500 rushing yards that they've been able to just pencil in with Derrick Henry. So I think they're going to address running back in a fairly meaningful way. And maybe it's way before this with somebody like Jadarian Price from Notre Dame. But come day 3, if they haven't taken one, they're going to take a few. You can learn a little bit more about those prospects. Again, Ravens on SI. A tight end, and I think tight end is a critical position for them. Marlon Klein, is he going to get drafted? I don't know. He played his high school football in Germany for the most part, and then came over here for a year, and then ended up in Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter's Michigan program, where at 6'6" and very raw, there are things they didn't ask him to do, like block. But let's, again, not get caught up in tight ends and blocking and all that. Could this kid at 6'6" run good enough routes for you to be in some sub packages at some point to win a little bit downfield? Does he have sure hands? Does he have the right mentality? Does he think like a Raven? Could he play like a Raven? He's 6'6" and moves. And guess what? He's not as beat up as some of these other prospects because he didn't play quite as much in college, and he came to football later in his career. And again, an interesting story. Most of his development in Germany, got better every year for Michigan. Everybody in that program likes him. Marlon Klein, and a linebacker at Iowa. Maybe that's Eric DaCosta's favorite program. It's hard to say. It's certainly one of them. Carson Scherer didn't really start playing on Iowa's defense till last year, and then everybody raved about him. He'll come in and be a special teams demon immediately. But Roquan Smith's a player we're going to dig deep on. I've done a lot of research, talked to a lot of people. What's going on with him? None of it's been good from a productivity standpoint for years now. Linebacker's a position that they better be thinking about what's up next. And Teddy Buchanan flashed a lot last year, but they're probably going to have to throw a lot of darts to make this work. And that's another position where they've had trouble in the draft, because if this worked out with Patrick Queen, they would have never had to do the whole Roquan Smith thing in the first place. So Carson Scherer, there's some really illuminating quotes from the way Ferentz talks about this kid, the kind of values that's there. And yeah, he's been on that campus forever, but he didn't play as much football, a late bloomer. And I think Kirk Ferentz would be the first one to say, I should have played this kid more than I did, sooner than I did. So yeah, that's today's show. Again, there's going to be so much to get to tomorrow. I've done a lot of work on potential trade down scenarios. if the Ravens did trade down, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think it's incredibly likely, but I do think if they did it, it would be for one of 4 particular scenarios that we'll lay out with particular player targets attached. Could the Ravens throw us any sort of different curveballs? Will the Ravens be in on any of these players you're hearing about who could be moved during the draft or shortly thereafter? The A.J. Browns, maybe my guy Butte. Thibodeau from Harbs. Could they make that trade? Done a lot of reporting on that. Plenty of that to get to tomorrow, and we'll certainly see what this Orioles lineup looks like tonight and if they're able to play some sound, fundamental baseball. That's been a problem for them for years. So I'm not going to hold my breath. And then on Thursday, as I mentioned, Marty Herney, longtime NFL general manager, someone who's still evaluating players on a daily basis. He's consulted for teams. He's doing a lot of work at VSiN. Marty's deep in this draft. We're going to have Marty sit down, pretend to be the Ravens GM, and walk us through a lot of things going on with the Ravens on Thursday. How comfortable would he be with this Lamar Jackson contract situation? What did he think of the Crosby trade and how all that broke down? And then which players and which spots does he think that Eric DeCosta and his staff have their eye on? So again, I appreciate everybody who's tuning in wherever you do. You can go to our brand new, I call it Twitter. I'm never going to call it the other thing. You can find Daily Flock content there. However, this is coming across your radar. The easiest and best way to find us is YouTube /@BigPlayBaltimore. You're going to be able to subscribe, find out anytime we get videos up that way. And again, you can also Gmail me, flockoff@gmail.com. I'm already fired up for tomorrow's show, if you can't tell. I haven't even had that much coffee. And we will see you on Wednesday for a draft eve edition of the Daily Flock. Whoop, whoop.